College Football 26 is getting its biggest update yet, fixing a lot of the bugs that we've run into, adding new mascots, uniforms, and much more that we're about to talk about, which is all a great thing. I talked about it a week ago. As much as I was loving the game, there was a big aspect of it that felt unpolished that they needed to fix, and if they're not going to get it right on launch, which I still believe they should and what I'm pushing for next year, the second best thing they can do is listen and get it right 30 days after launch. I know it's going to sound like a crazy concept to people, but I can like a game and also notice its flaws with it and criticize it constructively. Anyway, we're going to be using this channel again to talk about stuff that's light effort. This isn't a 15-20 hour recording session. So let me just go through all of the stuff. The first thing they've really honed in on is the gameplay. I was more so worried about stuff inside Dynasty. There's also some gameplay stuff I've noticed though. So I'm glad to see that coverage-wise, they've adjusted some of the match coverages here. They've been able to pinpoint some of the issues they were having with them. Like corners were pressing by default on trip sides out of cover 4 palms, cover 6. It was giving up more one-play touchdowns. You'll notice that in an online game, or you might notice it against the computer. Those one-play touchdowns might not be there as much. On the blocking front, we've gotten a major overhaul to a lot of things. Whether or not it works, again, we have to find out once this update goes live tomorrow. But there were some annoying bugs, like where the quarterback animations prevented players from making protection adjustments after blocking the running back. I remember people complaining about it. I never adjust my offensive line, so I didn't run into it. Protection menu now closes automatically after making an adjustment. That's a little quality of life thing. Visual feedback. There were display issues on offensive and defensive fronts where some of the coverages or whatever your play art was would just remain on the field. I'm hoping that that addresses it on the defensive side as well. That was just one of those little things to me that makes it feel unpolished, where you sit there, you're like, no one caught this. Blocking logic, there were also some big enhancements to that. This is just on the pass protection side as well. There's also a section for run blocking. One thing I do want to point out, base protection is now less effective against stunts. The reason I want to talk about base protection is if you haven't noticed, whenever you call a play in this game, it comes out with different protections. It's not always just base protection. And depending on what protection is coded into that play, sometimes you can have a free rusher in if you don't adjust the protection on it. This just has me thinking that if they're going to use that in the game, if they're going to have the certain protections coded into the play, you might as well give us an option to always come out in base protection or some way to flip between it, because if you're not paying attention, if that's one of the last things you look at, all of a sudden a free rusher could be coming in, and it's not necessarily because of the blocking logic. I'm definitely not saying that that's always the reason a free rusher gets in. Trust me, I've seen it where I've done nothing wrong and they just shoot through. It happens. But that might be another reason you end up experiencing it. They've also tuned some of the pocket behavior. This should help because there were pass blockers that would just stay in double teams unnecessarily, which then would lead to that free rusher. There were definitely problems with it. I also saw reduced frequency of illegal man downfield penalties, and it made me think. For online gameplay, I wouldn't want there to be a bunch of penalties, but whenever I'm sitting there playing against the computer, I've noticed that there's just been like no face mask penalties. I don't know, what are your all's thoughts on that? I feel like if you're playing against the computer for a while, you want to experience at least a couple penalties a game, especially whenever you're like tackling a receiver. They should be able to get PI for it. Difficulty tuning, they increased pass rush effectiveness on Heisman and All-American. This means that you're going to have to get the ball out even quicker, I think. But if some of their tuning that they've done up here worked, then I guess that's not a bad thing that they had to do this. They had to counteract all the tuning. I don't know. I just feel like that's going to give people the free pass whenever they take a few sacks a game to just immediately complain about it. Like they increased it too much. They ruined the game. They very well could. Who knows? This is something you're going to have to experience. I guess I got to give that disclosure every time. We don't know how this is going to actually play out. Run blocking, run shedding. Here are all the updates they did to run blocking here. Resolved issues where blockers missed or switched targets in open field, including on RPOs and core blocking schemes. That is a major deal. There were some times where like my receiver would block amazing downfield, and then other times where they just sit there and jog and do nothing. I hope it's talking about that and not just like originally whenever the play starts and it's snapped. Run game enhancements, added logic to allow users to be able to untarget defenders on run plays using the ID mic system. Okay. I will say running felt smoother whenever it launched, and then at some point they did like a small patch and it felt a lot harder. I don't know if any of this stuff is going to reverse that feeling, but I know that they buffed up the linebackers' pursuit, which is why some of those outside runs now might feel so much harder to pull off. Apparently the run backers were like stuck in mud and they were not getting to the spot quick enough, but now there has to be some sort of counteract to make sure that they're getting blocked correctly on the offensive side. So That's where I always get worried with some of this tuning stuff is, yeah, you might be fixing an issue on the surface, but if it's not tested enough before it's rolled out to us, then we might unearth more issues, which has been my whole point the entire time. You're putting out a good game, you're listening, but then you're just holding it back by not having a solid enough test before it's put out there. I'd work for free to test this game if I had to. I'd love to be a part of that process just so the community that pays the most for it gets that perfect experience on launch. Not even perfect, because it won't be perfect, but a lot better than having to do all sorts of title updates to fix it. Y'all know what I'm saying with that. General blocking animations, just more blocking stuff here. Run fits in pursuit, tuning to improve effectiveness of quarterback-contained defenders versus play-action bootlegs. So I guess it wasn't working that well against play-action. But to be honest, there's some play-actions, it's an instant loss of 7 yards. Maybe I don't set up well enough for it by running the ball. But then there's other play-actions that have worked really well for me. So I just hope that this is strictly for the bootlegs and that play action can still be effective. They also tuned improved man coverage effectiveness versus jet motion. I've been seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok where people are using motions to just glitch out the defense. So hopefully that is going to apply there. Playbook wise, adjusted wildcat and flexbone plays. This goes back to all other clips I've seen on TikTok, dude. There's a wildcat formation that is broken. So hopefully that's what this is talking about, addressing that. Split flexbone toss into 2 types, fixed a blocking issue on rocket toss, buck sweep. And this is the thing. These blocking issues, they needed to be addressed because especially after they made the linebackers pursue players the way that they should, I was not able to run out of shotgun if there was anyone pulling. There were a couple plays that actually worked perfect, especially when we were the better team. But I felt like I was just losing yards too many times. I don't know. That might just be my experience on it. Added new content to Army, Navy, Air Force, and option generic offenses, including new flexbone and wingback formations. So they're continuing to update playbooks a bit. Introduced go-go generic offense. Good. So they got the go-go in there. Expanded air raid generic offense as well. Though, I don't know about you all. I don't use the generic offensive playbooks in this game. Updated play call suggestions to avoid duplicate play types in the same row. So just more small stuff here. We got Dynasty. My eyes have been glued to Dynasty. The second I saw Dynasty pop up, I didn't care about the rest of those little changes. We have added 2 new awards, which are both available in the trophy room. The Sean Alexander Award, given to the best freshman of the year, and the Jet Award. This one's for special teams. I didn't notice that the Jet wasn't in there. And was this in the game last season? I feel like it wasn't. Maybe it was, they just didn't have it titled the Sean Alexander Award because they didn't have real names last year. Then to help players make better decisions when determining who to target in the transfer portal, career wear and tear is now shown in the player module. I think that's down in the right corner. So that's a nice little touch because you could already scroll through like their season stats and stuff, see what type of effort they're putting out on the field. Corrected an issue with lighting and game times. Now in-game times properly reflect local time. This means that a 9 p.m. Eastern time game in Hawaii will correctly be at 3 p.m. local time. I don't know if I can take credit for this, but I almost feel like I can because of the Hawaii mention. See, here's the thing. I had Hawaii in my top 5 of teams that I wanted to use for my first Dynasty. And as I was testing it out on the early access build, I noticed that when I was loading into games with them, they were always night games, even though if they kick off at 9 p.m. Eastern time, over there, they're like 5-6 hours behind. It should be bright. It should be sunlight, but all of their games were night games. So I noticed that. And I just shot over a text about it. They said they added new scheduling rules for non-Eastern time teams to ensure their games start at the correct times locally. So I'm assuming that's just making sure that they're not kicking off many of their games at like 12 p.m. on a Saturday. They should most of the time start later in the day. Added additional rules reflecting the limitations on day games in Arizona. But yeah, all this goes back to the fact that it's just having a dev team that you're able to give feedback to, that they're reading through the Reddit posts, they're seeing the stuff on social media, and that if they can get a quick turnaround on it, they're going to get quick fixes there. I love to see that. Like I said, if you don't get it right the first time, getting it right the second time, especially in a title update like this, that's a big deal to me. You want to be able to be this transparent, say, hey, we've noticed that this is wrong. And even if you can't fix it off rip, just say, we're looking into this and we're trying to get a solution. Being transparent, I feel like that makes a big difference for most of us. Anyway, getting back into this, added the team uniforms to player portraits on full screen notifications. No idea what that means. Tuned ability prerequisites to better align with positional archetypes. That's a big deal because there were definitely archetypes where certain abilities you just never be able to unlock. They also said they updated skill groups for many archetypes to ensure they have access to every ability for their archetype. So I think that more gets into what I was talking about. Like you could increase a certain skill group but not to the level where it would be able to unlock an ability at certain archetypes. I'm glad that they've worked on that. Exception for the dot ability on gadget receivers for balance purposes. You know what? It's understandable. You can still get a decent quarterback out of a gadget receiver. You get good speed, good throw power. It's a rare situation like a Lynn Bowden Jr. at Kentucky where it's fun, but you can still find it. Also, I will point out, gadget receivers, if you upgrade their elusiveness and their speed while they're a receiver, and then you take them over and make them a running back later in their career, absolute monsters. That's just something I've been able to pick up on a little bit more recently. Multiple fixes to playing style grades across various archetypes. So this is needed. Playing style, it always feels like sometimes it can fluctuate too soon. It fluctuates a bit too much. I would even notice drops over bye weeks that were kind of driving me nuts. They've updated box specialists to use defensive rush yards against per game. Someone DM'd me this last night that it was having an issue with this archetype. So good to see that they're doing that right there. Update signal caller playing style rank to use the correct ordering. I personally rarely get signal callers or box specialist. I hadn't noticed these two, but glad that they're touching up on it. Increase speed and acceleration for safeties and recruit generation. This is massive. If you haven't been paying much attention, if you get like a box specialist safety, they come in with 79, 81 speed, and you could get any 3-star corner. You probably got 88 plus, maybe it's 86, 85. But they just were always slower. The safeties were always slower than the corners by a lot most of the time, even on those high-end 4-stars. So I'd love to see some 88s, some 90 speeds, even some 93s, 94s. That's good. That's good. Especially 3- and 4-star coverage specialist and hybrids. These are the ones to look for. If you're looking at box specialists, they're going to be a bit slower anyway. The pro potential my school grade now properly updates after draft results. And before the start of the transfer portal, I don't know if this is a good thing because I would want this school grade to update during encouraged transfers. That way, not encouraged transfers, during the players leaving thing. Because that way you won't have players transferring out if you're going to have a guy that's drafted to that position first round that year. So I'll give you all an example. Let's say you have a 93 overall quarterback. He's going to be drafted in the first round, and the backup behind him cares about pro potential as his deal breaker. Well, if your school grade in the past has been low for that, and it doesn't factor in that he's going to get drafted this year, then you're going to lose that quarterback to the portal because it's something that's been addressed from the season, and you lose that quarterback to the NFL. So you lose both the players. I'm hoping that that is what they're talking about here. They've increased the number of players in the transfer portal who start in the open status. This might be the biggest dynasty fix right here. There were like no players that started with the open status. Now we should be able to go after all sorts of players in the portal. And this should also fix the players in the portal that just end up disappearing, that don't get recruited to a team, because now those guys can be recruited by other programs. We'll have to see how it's implemented, how many players are actually in the open status, whether it's a lot or not many, but this could be really big and important for the portal. That portal has improved miles ahead of what it was in 25. The fact that players even transferring this year, dynamic deal breakers, probably my favorite add to this game. When in record screen, switching between national, season, game tabs will now maintain your current filter, allowing you to easily view a team. This is so good. This is such a small little niche fix, but if you've ever been trying to view your school's record books in this game and you tried to go between national, season, and game records, every single time it would reset and you'd have to scroll all the way back. So this is a big time saver. Then we got some updated rushing records, and this needed to happen. I mean, Missouri State, I think they had a record of 2,200 rushing touchdowns in a season. It's very small, little stuff like that in the record book. But again, I would love to be a person that just went in for free and tested stuff like that, because I'd prefer if stuff like that, it can easily be caught. It doesn't get in on launch. Super Sim, reduce the number of pass attempts for AI teams, increased yards per catch for teams with elite wide receiver ones, increased design quarterback run plays to ensure running quarterbacks closely aligned to their real-world rushing attempts. I feel like they've done a lot better job with the sim stats this year. Passing yards are a little bit inflated, but at least the rushing yards, much better. Receiving numbers look a lot more realistic. So I'm glad that they're still doing a little bit of tuning to this. I think the reason the number of passing yards for every team was so high was because of the number of pass attempts. So that's why they're reducing it. It would still be nice, like in game, if the AI quarterbacks missed as many throws as you do if you have a bad quarterback. But I haven't seen anything about that yet. Then we got added a weekly summary notification. I don't care about any of those. Fixed an issue where non-user coaches could appear as vacant in the schemes and playbook screen. Fixed an issue where you'd be unable to change a player's position after viewing their player card. This is another very underrated one. If you were in position changes and you went in to look at a player card to see what their skill caps were and then you backed out, you wouldn't be able to change their position unless you backed out of position changes completely. So I'm glad that they addressed that. Another little nice thing here. Fixed an issue where team percentage win did not include bowl games. I didn't even notice that there. Apparently that was a problem. Setting the player edit permission to commissioner no longer allows non-commissioner users to edit the height and weight of their players. That's an online Dynasty thing. It should be only the commissioner that can control that. At least in my opinion, you don't want a Dynasty full of 7-foot-tall guys. When exiting the auto sub screen, you'll now be prompted with a pop-up asking if you want to save your changes. Updated teams' athletic facilities and brand exposure, my school grades. Does this mean that they're going to fluctuate better, or they've just updated them off rip? I say that because in the FIU Dynasty series, I ran into a problem where stadium atmosphere and athletic facilities, even after we'd won championships, we'd had lots of winning seasons, those grades never increased from an F after all the success. So I'm a little worried that stadium atmosphere was not mentioned there, but I'm hoping that that means those grades are functioning a little bit better. I just haven't seen anything about the stadium atmosphere bug on here so far. Maybe they don't have a fix for it yet. They fixed an issue causing Team Builder My School grades to not align with the website grades late in the season. I haven't even used a Team Builder school yet. Haven't seen that. Add the strategist archetype icon to player module. This seems like it's a bunch of gibberish it's such a niche low issue. Fixed an issue where FCS teams showed under the ACC filter. That might be the ACC in a few seasons if everyone departs. Fixed an issue in staff moves where coach module would display the coach's record with their new school as their record with their previous school. Now it shows 0 and 0. Okay. Then apparently you could add a school to the conference they are already in. I didn't know that was a thing. Custom schedules now show the correct location for neutral site games, and add a counter to formation subs, displaying the total number of subs that have been made. That is all the updates they've done for Dynasty. Let me know in the comments what else you want to see. I think we've talked about a few of them already, but it's keeping them on their toes, telling them all the stuff that we still want to see worked on, and hopefully they continue to listen. Road to Glory. When adding a school to your top schools list, you will now see if that school has offered you a scholarship, regardless of whether or not they're in your top 10. Okay, low quality of life thing there. Fixed an issue where offers would be given or revoked when advancing to National Signing Day. That would absolutely stink if that happened. Then they've reduced the amount of test readiness needed to pass your exams to more closely align with the scrape by. Thank goodness. You all saw this in my first Road to Glory series in early access content, where I couldn't play in my conference championship. I think it was my sophomore year. Anyway, I was at James Madison, had a great season all year. I made sure that we were at least scraping by with academics, and then I failed, and I couldn't play in the conference championship game. It was so frustrating. Then I ended up transferring out because I moved down to quarterback 4. It seems like they realized maybe it was taking a bit too much energy. These college athletes, they're not putting that much time into the classroom. So they're going to adjust that a little bit. If you already have a low GPA, you will still need to get higher than scrape by in order to stay eligible. That is important to keep in mind. So you'll have to get higher than scrape by if you maintain a low GPA. But if you're maintaining like a 3.5, a 4, which I think I had at one point, you don't have to do more than scrape by. Another big fix to the energy that I started to pick up later on in the career, it's why we cut the series short, was the amount of wear and tear damage you incurred from just doing basic training on the weekly training. It was a lot. It caused me to have to miss playing my senior year. So I am very glad that they've been able to adjust that for the people in Road to Glory. Medal thresholds for gap drill for cornerbacks have been reduced. I have not even done a cornerback build. Player grade, widget, and pause menu stat screens now show total touchdowns. Added player feedback notifications when exiting high school games. Added new sponsorship deals to be earned via NIL. I hope this means in your final seasons, you actually get some of those sponsors popping up. Because one thing I noticed on my playthrough was once we got to those final years, I had no pop-ups. It was literally just playing the games. I'd already become the starter. So then it became kind of boring and repetitive. But if you have these new sponsorship deals popping up later in your career as you build up your social media following, which now give you skill points to upgrade your player this year, that's a big deal. So I'm hoping that they've touched on that. Fixed an issue where you could not graduate in 3 years if you redshirted your first season. That's kind of crazy. Fixed an issue allowing you to spend energy points on leadership and brand, even when the meters were already full. Those meters definitely had their problems. Fixed an issue where your current school appeared as one of the schools you could transfer to in the transfer portal. I actually thought that was intended there, because in real life, if you enter the portal and then you decide that there's not better options and you pull out, I figured that was there intended. I guess it wasn't. Fixed an issue with Mike Linebacker not displaying properly in trophy room. All right. You know, I'm not reading this. I don't care. I don't touch the mode. What happened earlier, though, was when I was reading through this, putting out a couple tweets about it, I didn't know there was all this beneath it because I just closed out the article the second I got to Ultimate Team. So, for my Ultimate Team people, I'm sure there's still a couple that are going to be curious. Seems like they did a lot here. I don't know if this is going to make you all happy with the game or not. It's the one that they have given the least amount of attention because it's just not the main college audience. But there are still people that enjoy the mode, so they have a separate team for that. They can keep up with it anyway. I don't know. I can't talk much on it because I don't know what was wrong with the mode. I've just seen people not like it. Adjusted neck length and helmet fitment on most all players. This is hashtag update college football 26 equipment actually going into work. So this is why I say you can sit there and put out stuff like that. They're going to end up listening. That's why it's a good thing. That's why I get so confused when people say I am not able to be critical of this game. I've been critical on 25. I've been critical on 26. Yes, I'm going to get excited every year whenever a game's coming out. I don't know what they're going to end up messing up. Now I get to be more skeptical every year, but hopefully launch next year goes well. I'm still going to be more optimistic. I am glad that they've been able to adjust a little bit of things. I don't think they added in much equipment yet, though. Adjusting the hair helmet on placement for players with longer hair is another thing someone sent to me last night. That is something that needed to be fixed. New alternate uniform elements for Ohio, Notre Dame, Boston College, Tennessee, Tulane, Tulsa, Iowa State, Mississippi State, Cincinnati. You can look for those. Newer updated away sets for all these schools as well. Adjusted assets for Marshall, I saw that one going viral on Twitter at one point. They had the Duke Blue Devil on their collar, so that has now been adjusted as well. Crowd updates, increased crowd reactions to big moments. I've been playing with audio for the first time this year on the game, and I've been enjoying it. That's going to make those even better. Home field advantage, pre-play swell, tuning for different stadium attendance sizes. Updated crowd assets for general pregame and Road to Glory first-person runouts. Just look like they've been able to work more on some of the crowd stuff with a little bit more time. As you can see, new crowd themes included in this year's update are exclusive to which schools you are playing against and the time of year. So they have all of those schools in there with the exclusive ones on that front. Music, we got more music. Do I need to read through these? I didn't see Kentucky, so I didn't care too much. Commentary updates, got a little bit there. New mascots as well. So this is another 5 of them. Appalachian State, Virginia, UTEP, James Madison, Memphis. Added new Kansas, waving wheat, end zone design, various corrections for other field art and other teams. Thank you all so much for your continued passion and dedication. We have more updates coming in the future that we're excited to share with you. So, we'll see what comes after this. The next big update, this is what they did last year at least. It was every 30 days. So, this is about 30 days post-launch now. And 30 days from now, I think we can expect another pretty big title update. One thing they didn't touch on here is the rosters. The rosters, there's still a lot of freshmen that aren't correct. I don't know if that's because they didn't get to it, if the players signed on late. I have no idea what the problem with that is. It's disappointing. You want to use those new freshmen in the game? I would assume that whenever they do their first big roster update, that's when they're all going to be corrected and fixed. So my assumption, 30 days out, another 30 days, that next big title update, that's where I'd expect to see it. But if it's done before, they've been doing some tinier title updates and patches in between. Maybe it comes then. Here's the final thing I'll say. If you're not quick to forget, College Football 25 launched in a really bad state before that first title update saved it. This is that same type of feel for this. But again, I'm asking that next year there's some better testing implement put forward so we don't have to go through needing multiple patches. The people that pay full price get that full value for it. That's my ask. I love the game, but I never want to see it get stagnant. I never want to see it slowly drift off to being the same type of thing. I guess I can tease the next video on this channel. I'm going to be giving Maximum Football a chance. I've always wanted to play it, so I got that in the works. It's just a little throwaway one there as well, but hopefully you all enjoy it.